Okay guys, like we agreed, we're going to start working with Vue.js with the Stripe API to tokenize our cards, and then we'll finally subscribe our users to a plan. So let's go ahead and get started. Remember, in the payments checkout, we go to the reference so that we can learn how to customize this model. Okay, so first thing, right down here, you want to go to the custom tab, and then we're going to see what we need. Looks like we need to import the Stripe library, and then we create a custom button, and then we'll go on from there. Okay, so first of all, let's just create a Vue.js component that is going to be in charge of payments with Stripe. Okay, I'll create a new component, and I'm just going to call it Stripe the Vue. Then I'm going to register that component in my app.js. Done. And now I can use this component in my template. So just for starters, I'm going to head over into my views, and right here I'm going to create a subscribe.blade.php, and then I'm going to just duplicate my profile page, paste that in, remove out all the markup like the content that we have right here, and then also right here we need to pull out some of these methods, and we can just change this header to say subscribe to our awesome site. Okay, so now that we have this, what we can do here now is mount our components so we can see what is going on. So view Stripe, and we'll have view Stripe. But then look at the first step is for us to include this script right here. So how do we include it? Remember, we don't want to put it in our app.blade.php. If not, it's going to be included in all of our HTML pages or all of the pages on our site, which we don't want because we aren't mounting this component everywhere, right? So we're going to tell our layout file. I'll head over to my app.blade.php, and right down at the bottom, or maybe preferably at the top so it's loaded first, I can yield a new section, and I'm gonna call this section scripts. Okay, then I'll head over to my subscribe, and I'm gonna create a new section here called scripts and section, and right here I can include my CDN link. Okay, so this script right here, I'm gonna copy it, I'm gonna paste it here. Okay, then let's head over to our web.php and create a simple route so that we can view that page. So route, it's gonna be a get, and we visit Stripe to visit that, and this will simply return a view which is exactly the view we created called subscribe. Okay, maybe we should actually call this subscribe. Okay, now when we visit the subscribe route, we're going to see this view, and hopefully if everything goes well, that should be brought in, which is the scripts. It should be yielded right here from this view. Okay, let's visit our browser. Head over to the application, visit /subscribe, view subscribe not found. What did I do? Okay, that's my fault. It's supposed to be subscribe with a B. Okay, refresh, everything should work now. If we check out our page source, there we go, we have that script loaded for us. Okay, so let's check out our documentation. So looks like we need a button such that when the user clicks on that button, it opens up the modal that we saw right here. So we're customizing the normal way so that we understand how it works, and then we know how to maybe make any changes that we want to do. Okay, so after including this link, we need to create a button. So I'll head over to my stripe.view, and we need a template, and sure enough we need a script, and in this template I'll have a button, and this is going to say subscribe to the $9 plan monthly. Okay, so this is going to be button success, and it looks like we have a button for the monthly plan, right? So if I head over back to this and refresh, looks like we have our button right there. Okay, so remember we are dealing with two plans, so we need to set up two buttons. So I'll change this to button info, for example, and I'll change this to $99 yearly. Okay, so the user chooses what plan, and remember we can't have this, so we're gonna wrap this in a div, so we have just one root element. Refresh, great, we have the monthly and we have the yearly. Now the next thing we need to do, according to our documentation, is create a handler, and we call Stripe checkout, and we call the configure method. We pass in the key, we pass in the image that we want to be displayed, for example, right here, this image. So we pass in the link to the image, and then we call local auto, so it should automatically determine the locale for the user, and then we pass in a callback called token, which is going to contain the token once Stripe changes the user credentials into a Stripe token. Okay, so let me copy this, and we'll head over to our script. In our stripe.view, we'll create our mounted hook, and I'll paste that in. Okay, so we need a handler, so we're gonna create constant handler equals stripe checkout.configure, and we'll pass in that object. So I'll just copy this right here and paste it right here. Delete this. We're done with it. And looks like this function, I'm just going to change everything so we're consistent with ES6. So we have this method that is called once Stripe makes an API call and changes the credit card information into a token. Okay, now we have the handler. The next thing, what do? We need to set the button that is going to be clicked, and then the handler is going to be opened. Okay, to open the modal. Right here, what you're doing is getting the element with ID custom button right here, and then we're adding an event listener, which is the click event, to open the handler. And after opening it, we can put in the credit card information and all that. So how do we register our click event handler? I'm gonna say when we click this button, it should call a method on this class called subscribe, for example. But remember, we are dealing with two methods, the one for the yearly and the one for the monthly. So let's just say if we click on the monthly button or the yearly button, we should pass in a string called yearly into this subscribe method. Okay, and on the subscribe for monthly, we're gonna register the click event, and we're gonna say call the subscribe method, but this time around the parameter we're gonna pass in is a string called monthly. So we have subscribe method. Let's create it. We'll create our methods object, and we'll call subscribe, and this takes in the string, so we're gonna call that string plan. What we're gonna do is check if the plan is monthly. So if the plan is monthly, then we're gonna set this the plan equals monthly, and else we'll set this the plan to be equal to yearly. Okay, so we're referring to this the plan, so why don't we set it as a data on this component? So we'll have to return an object, and plan would be an empty string by default. Okay, so we check the plan, we save it on this class, and then we're gonna proceed to opening the handler. Okay, so how do we open the handler? We need to pass in the name, description, and the amounts. So looks like we also need to know the amount for the monthly. Therefore, we're gonna say this dot amount is equal to $9.99, because remember, we are passing it in cents. And if it's the yearly plan, we also need to say this dot amount is equal to $99.99. Okay, because we want $99. Okay, so let's just set up amount on this to be 0. And I'm actually saving this because we're going to be making an API call to our server to create the subscription, and we need to pass in the plan, if it's the monthly or the yearly. So we better have this on our global data right here. Okay, so once we set that, we already know if it's the monthly or the yearly. We need to open our handler. Okay, so we need to be able to access the handler. So why don't we do this? We would say this dot handler is equal to Stripe checkout. Therefore, we have our handler right here, which is null by default. So when the component is mounted, we save the Stripe checkout configuration, and once we save that in the handler, we are able to call the subscribe method when these two buttons are clicked, and the subscribe method is going to know if it's the monthly or the yearly plan, and if it's that, it's going to open the handler with the correct credentials. So this dot handler dot open, and we'll pass in an object just like they're doing right here, and we need to pass in name, description, and amounts. So we'll say name is Badcast, description is maybe Badcast subscription, and the amount is going to be this dot amount. Okay, so when we click on the subscribe button, that is what should happen. Great, let's check this out in our browser to see if it makes any sense. Let's click on that, And look at that, we have our form with pay $9. Let's close this. Let's click on the $99 plan, and now we have $99 right here to pay. Okay, so that's our podcast subscription, and this is the image we pulled in. Okay, so I want us to put hold right here and continue in the very next video, but just to recap on what we've been doing. We have our subscribe, we included the CDN link for the Stripe checkout JS, and in our stripe.view, we registered this event listener, which is the click. It passes in monthly and passes in yearly into the subscribe method, which is right here. And our subscribe method is simply making sure that the component is aware that it's on the monthly plan or on the yearly plan, setting the correct amount and the correct plan name. Okay, and then we just opened the handler as usual, just like we have in the documentation right here. Okay, so let's continue building on this in the very next episode.